Um,
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, welcome back to We Can Tech Talk. My name is Rafin Putra as the host for today's We Can Tech Talk. So in today's occasion, we would like to talk about the introduction to Linux. And our speaker today will be Brother Mawaldi Adhamadid. So
so
hello Mawaldi.
yes, hello.
So can you introduce yourself?
Okay. First thing first, let me introduce myself. My name is Mawaldi Hamajid. I'm from Chanapil, and I'm in uh, vocational high school, IDN Boarding School right now. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, so what major are you in right now?
I used to learn right now. I used to learn about web programming right now. Not much, but it is pretty good for me.
Okay, maybe that's enough for the introduction. So, Bro Maori, are you ready to presentate your theme for this Weekend Tech Talk?
Yes,
Introduction to Linux.
I'm ready to giving some weekend tech talk today with the theme of introduction to Linux.
Well then, the stage is yours.
All right, so hi everyone and welcome. And I think I've already introduced myself to you. And like the theme of today is introduction to Linux. So you may probably ask, what is Linux and why we should use them. And also, maybe for you all say that Linux is not uh, good for for every user computer right now because Unix is pretty complicated. Well, it's actually good for developer. But first thing, before we answer all of that question, we are gonna be talking about what is Linux for us. So let me present that my screen here. All right, if you have see Linux, Linux has a logo like this. It's a penguin, or we can say it's called Tux. It's a penguin. It's called Tux. It's a mascot from Linux itself. Well, or the logo. Well, we are going to tell in here. So Linux is a family of open source Unix like operating system based on Linux kernel. So if you haven't know about Linux, that Linux is only the kernel itself. So it's not the real operating system, but it's only the kernel. Well, if Windows using Windows is using Windows NT as their kernel, or they are using their own self kernel, while Linux has their own kernel too. So it's different between Windows and Linux. It's an operating system kernel first released on September 17, 1991 by Linus Torvalds. Linux is typically packaged as Linux distribution. So each Linux has a distribution by itself, which we're going to be talking about later, which includes the kernel and supporting system software and libraries, many of which are provided by the GNU project, or we can say GNU is graphical uh, graphical user. I mean, like it's a graphical operating system, which we're gonna be talking that later. Many Linux distributions use the word Linux in their name, but the Free for Software Foundation use and recommend the name of GNU or Linux to emphasize the use and importance of GNU software in many distributions, causing some controversy. Well, we are going to be talking who is the maker of Linux itself. So here we have Linus Torvalds itself. I think this is the old picture of himself because he's already getting old today because he was born in a long time. So we are going to be talking about Linux Torvalds itself. Okay. As you can see here, the original name is Linux Benedicts Torvalds. Is a Finnish software engineer who is the creator and lead developer of the Linux kernel, or we can say he's the founder itself, used by Linux distribution like Debian, Arch, and Android. He also created the distribution version control system JIT. Well, so basically he's the the developer, and as you can see, this is the latest photo, I think, and he's already like an old ago. If we can see here, he was born in like December 28, 1969. So so he's probably like 50 right now, 51, if I know. Well, yeah. Also, Linux has a lot of uh, distribution, which we're gonna be talking right now. Here are the couple of Linux distribution software that basically available right now. As you can see, we have Ubuntu itself. If you ever heard about Ubuntu, it's a distribution software. And we have Fedora Linux with Ender 4 OS and Black Arch and Linux and also a lot of them. Well, why do Linux have a lot of distribution software? Because Linux was made by a community. So it's different between Mac OS, Windows, and any other operating system, which Linux was made by the community. So if you see that there's Ubuntu here, yes, this operating system was made by community. So it was run by a community that worked in there, or it could be not only a community, but it's unlow, but it is also a company. Well, most of them are probably run by community, but also a company. Well, so there are a lot of this one, but which I recommend to use is Ubuntu, Fedora Linux, Arch Linux, and also there should be Debian here, but yeah, there's no Debian. Well, I recommend if you're from Windows user, I recommend you to use Ubuntu. Well, as you can see here, there are a lot of Linux distribution are here right now, like a lot. Well, we're gonna be talking Ubuntu first. Ubuntu is a Linux distribution based on Debian and composed mostly of free and open source software. Ubuntu is officially released in multiple editions: desktop, server, and core for Internet of Things, device, and robots. So Linux has released a multiple edition. Well, we're gonna open the website here so you guys can see what um, version they have already made. Well, as you can see here, they have made the Ubuntu desktop or the original Ubuntu, where basically Ubuntu desktop is used for replace your current operating system, whether it's Windows or Mac OS, running Ubuntu alongside with it. So it's basically a normal operating system, which you can use it for daily basis performance. While Ubuntu servers is for operating system for server. If you ever heard about Windows Server, well, it is same like Ubuntu Server. They are built for a server, for maintain server. While we got Ubuntu for IoT, if you are a developer who wants to try Snappy Ubuntu Core or Classic Ubuntu on IoT board, well, you can actually run Ubuntu on IoT board like Raspberry Pi, Intel IoT platform, Qualcomm, and also a lot of them. Well, these are the board that used for IoT. Well, you can install Ubuntu on this board. And we also have Ubuntu Cloud, which we use it for in cloud, I guess. Well, as you can see here, Ubuntu already been approved by a lot of company, a big company like Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, AT&T, and AWS, AWS, and it's great. I mean, like a lot of big company are running on this. Well, another um, operating system that I can over except Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is seems hard. I mean hard for you, because Ubuntu is not like Windows. So if you want an operating system of Linux, um, our system, see Linux operating system that looks like Windows, well, I recommend you to use Linux Mint. Well, as you can see here in the picture itself, they describe it. You can see the UI or user interface. It seems like Windows. As you can see in this picture, it just looks like a Windows. And I think you don't really confuse on this Linux Mint, because Linux Mint is free, and also it's easy to use. There's a lot of community that's running Linux too. So I forgot that I have to explain about Linux Mint first. So Linux Mint is a community-driven Linux distribution based on Ubuntu. So what? So if you ask, so this is based on Ubuntu. So how about Ubuntu? What are distribution they are based on? Well, Ubuntu is based on Debian, as you can see in the Google itself. Let me check it first. As you can see here, they are based on Debian distribution. Well, if you don't know Debian distribution, we can search it for you. It's a distribution, or we can call it GNU or Linux. So it's like the parents of Ubuntu itself. Debian, also known as Debian GNU or Linux, is a Linux distribution composed of free and open source software developed the community-supported Debian project, which was established by Ian Murdoch on August 16, 1993. Well, I think it was made before Ubuntu, so that's the reason why it's the parent of Ubuntu. Well, we back to Linux Mint. We're gonna open the website itself. As you can see here, it was released on August 27, 2006. It was 70 years ago, and it's still getting update until this day, which I recommend you to use Linux Mint because it's simple and there are a lot of um, benefit if you're using Linux Mint. Well, you can use browsing web. Of course, you can do browsing web in here. Well, you can use for productivity, which you already included by LibreOffice. It's a free software like Microsoft Word, Excel, or Microsoft Office. And you also can use it for graphic design. Well, you can install Blender on it and game in step and vector graphics. You can do a multimedia on it, which was streaming music, watch TV, and others, and also gaming. I don't think so. You can do gaming on Linux um, operating system, because Linux is limited, like not a lot of developer likes to develop games on Linux, because Linux is hard to install and something. Well, there are couple of Linux distribution. I mean version. Well, if we click download here, there are a lot of type of version. We have the cinnamon edition, which was the regular edition. You can use it the cinnamon edition. Well, if you want the old looking design of Linux, you can use Mate edition, which was like it's still running on the latest software, but it just looks like an 2000 or 2006 or 2011 type of Linux. Well, it runs faster than Cinnamon Edition because it runs on the old design or version. Well, we also got XFCE Edition, which is a lightweight version of Linux Mint. It's very light, and you don't really have need a lot of resource usage. Or we can use Cinnamon Edge Edition. Um, If you cannot install the Cinnamon edition, well, you can use the Edge edition to run your Linux on your desktop. While Edge edition is like a light version of Linux Mint. Well, after we explain about Linux Mint, we've seen a lot of progress which Linux has made. So you're not bored with this one. Well, we're gonna next to the name. to the next distribution called Kali Linux. It's a distribution for designed for digital forensic and penetration testing. Well, it's basically um, designed for cybersecurity. If you guys are cybersecurity, well, we can use Kali Linux because there are a lot of software that has been installed on Kali Linux, cybersecurity software that has been installed on that. Well, it was released on 2013, so it's not old like Linux Mint. So it's still getting update until this day. As you can see, the latest release was like 2 days ago, and that's a big wow. They still updated until this day. And we're gonna open this web itself. The most advanced penetration testing distribution. Well, they said it's well. If you don't know what they said, well, we can say they are made the most advanced cybersecurity operating system. Or we can say it like that. Kali is not hard to install, but yeah, it's for developer. It's for cybersecurity. There's nothing to do about it. There's not. There's no difference between uh, Linux Ubuntu or Linux Mint. I think they are the same. Well, you get basically when you install Kali Linux, you get all of these tools to hacking, which basically a good offers for you if you want to hacking. Well, also they made the what is it called mobile version. Yes, they also made the mobile version of the Linux Kali itself. So, which it was like really amazing. And also they're supporting ARM architecture, or we can say the ARM as architecture of CPU. So they support that, and also they support the mobile, of course. They also support cloud, virtual machine, and also a lot of things that they basically been offered to. And also you can install a desktop different desktop style. You can install XFC, which is basically the original Linux desktop. If you want to run the lightweight, you can use XFCE because it's lightweight to run. But if you want for the aesthetic, you can run with the Genome shell. If you're from macOS user, you should probably use this one. Well, KDE Plasma is like you can use it though. It is like same like Windows, I guess. Also they have community in this one. Well, let's click download, and what they offer for the version, they offer a lot of version. You can install it with the ISO. You can install it for the virtual machine, and also you can install it for ARM based laptop or computer. You can install it for mobile, cloud, WSL. If you don't know, WSL is Windows Subsystem for Linux. It's a um new feature from Windows itself, it's like years ago. And Lifeboot, if you want to use your Linux from USB, you can do that too. And also you can use for containers. I don't know what containers do. Well, basically they're still offering for 32 bits version, 64 bits version, and even Apple Silicon ARM 64 version. So basically, this one is more updated Linux I've ever seen is because you can run it on everywhere, almost everywhere. You can run it on virtual machine. Yes, you can, and you want to run it on install image or your own computer. Yes, you can. If you want to run it on your ARM devices, yes, you can. You can run it on mobile, cloud, and a lot of things. This basically was pretty good. And if you want an operating system that does a lot, maybe Kali will do it. Okay, after we explain about Kali Linux, we are going to be moving into Android. Why we are directed to Android? What is the um, connection between Linux and Android? Well, if you don't know that Android is basically use Linux kernel. Android is a mobile operating system based on modified version of the Linux kernel and other open source software. So basically, Android is also runs like Linux, or we can call it Android is Linux operating system, but it's not because it's designed for mobile operating system and which they running a different package. And as you can see here, there are families like Unix, like modified Linux kernel. So it's a modified and it's totally different than any other Linux that have been released. And as you can see, it's only can run a mobile device. But not only mobile device, they are also made the TV version of the operating system itself, which was incredible. And they are still supported this day. And also, it was like the best selling TV operating system. Yeah, maybe. Well, we are going to be talking about the Linux statistic and why you should use Linux. We're going to be talking about Linux statistic. Well, we see here is editor's choices. All of world's 500 supercomputer run on Linux. Because of why? Because Linux is basically lightweight and it's also easy to maintain and you don't need to update every seconds like Windows did. 85 of all smartphones are powered by Linux. Well, the 85% is the Android. So 85% of person worldwide use Android. And that's true. One of the leading contribution to Linux kernel is Intel. So Intel been contributing Linux lately. Well, they basically, if you own Intel Intel chip, well, you can run Linux properly. Out of 25 top websites in the world, only two are powered by Linux. Well, if you ever know about, if you ever see any website, they are maintained by Linux. Well, only two are powered by Linux, which is crazy. They all use Linux. There are over 600 Linux distro available. There are over 600. That's a lot. And basically, which number you cannot get on macOS and Windows because they only made couple of operating system or version. The US borrows the most significant number of Ubuntu users. Ubuntu power nearly 40% of all websites with a known system. Well, that's only a small statistic, and we're gonna be talking about the long statistics. Well, we're gonna be talking about the Linux usage statistic. Number one is Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube all use Linux as their operating system, and that's a big wow. And that's hardly all since we can also add the likes of Google, Fujifilm, Kisco, Huawei, eBay, and Intel among the sites that have chosen Linux. Developers love it too. So all the developers love Linux because they are have a lot of plugins. They are lightweight to use. They are efficient to run, and which um that's what developer wants. So that's why they are running Linux with 76.9% choosing it as the platform on which they prefer to work in 2020. So almost 77% of developers choose Linux to prefer to work in 2022. That's based on 2022. Well, how about this day? It could be more than that. Linux powers 85% of all smartphones, or we can say Android powers 85% of all smartphones. Google's Android and Chrome OS are both operating systems built on Linux kernel. Having said that, even though Android boasts like a global market share of 86%, it's still built on Linux, so it counts. It's understandably. It plays a significant role in the market share. So even though it's in Android, Linux say it was like so it could be it is say like Linux. Linux was used for the special effects in Titanic. What? I never seen this one, but Yeah, one of the first most notable cases of Linux usage by Hollywood was for rendering frames for Titanic. I never know about this, but that's a historical moment. Well, and also we're going to be to explain that SpaceX, NASA, and ESA employ Linux for their missions. So when they are de- deploy the rocket or making anything, they are running it on Linux, which was incredible. Linux ran on all of the world's 500 supercomputer in 2021, which was um, crazy because Linux is lightweight to use. So that's the reason why they are running the supercomputers because it's lightweight. They don't need um, biggest RAM to run on the Linux on the operating system itself. Women account for 10% of the Linux kernel kit population. How can women in here? Like, I don't know. Intel is the leading contributor to Linux kernel. Intel is one of the top contributors for Linux kernel with uh, almost 97,000 lines change and 1,300 change sets. Huawei is the next on the list, but has outperformed Intel by the number of change sets. Contributors from this company added 1,500 change sets and modified 5.3% of the line. Well, if you guys know about it, well, you guys know about it. Linux market share statics. I think I already said that before. Linux account for 2.14% of all desktop operating system worldwide. Well, it's still getting beaten by Windows and also Apple's Mac with 15%. Well, but it's a big number if you know. But yeah, why a lot of people prefer Windows? Because it's easy to use and you can do gaming on it. But it's not powerful as Linux did. And followed by Apple Macs. Why Apple has a lot of numbers? Because the ecosystem itself, and it's Apple. They're gonna buy it. While regular desktop users aren't exactly flocking to Linux, the operating system popularity has more than doubled in the last decade. The main reason for the growing Linux adoption is the low cost of ownership, flexibility, and strong security. Linux server market share is expected to reach whopping 515 billion by 2027. And that's a big number for an operating system, but not big as Windows did. Linux user shares on Steam is only 1%. Of course, because not a lot of game developers are preferred to run on Linux, and which they are not. Also, boosted by Linux itself, which who wants to gaming on Linux? NVIDIA also doesn't support Linux as well, and which was bad news. Android dominates the mobile OS market with 73% market share. And also, and again, Android is getting a big number because most people on the world use Android. The number of lines of code submitted to the Linux Git repository reached 228 millions in 2021. That's a big number. I mean, like, imagine the number of lines. It's that's a lot. Linux support hours less than 1% of the remaining lines of code, which a lot of contribution have been made. This operating system, um, which been supporting this operating system, which is crazy. A lot of distribution. This is contains all of the contribution. Well, so Linux Torvalds one first Linux Torvalds make Linux is only have 1% of the remaining lines of code. I think Linux Torvalds didn't do coding anymore. And as we said, Linux have 600 distribution. You would power around 4 million, 400 million websites, which is crazy. The number the US has the largest shares of Ubuntu users in 2021. So US has the largest share on for using Ubuntu. Red Hat has 34 shares in the worldwide server operating environment market because Red Hat was used for was meant to use for doing server. Debian is Linux oldest distro, released in 1993. Well, I think there's a lot of talk. Yeah, maybe only that I could say on Linux because Linux has a lot of advantage of it itself. So last before we close, you may probably ask, is it worth to use Linux? Yes. First, it was free. Second, it's light to use. Three, it's good for developer because you can basically install all of the plugin. And also, if you own install and you want if you want a great operating system that run lightweight or less maintenance, you can use Linux. It's a great operating system and you need to use it. And there's a lot of couple community that will help you to install Linux Mint and also I mean all of the Linux and also there's a lot of tutorial that you can see on YouTube to install Linux on your devices. So that's all from me for today and I will continue to the host of these sessions.
Okay, so that was an interesting talk about introduction to Linux. So we've learned a lot of this from this conversation that Brother Mawaldi had said to us about the history of Linux and the founder of Linux. It's called Linus, and then the compatibility, the difference between Linux with Apple ecosystem and Windows and many other things. So I hope this weekend tech talk session will be helpful to you guys. Thank you for listening to our agenda. We are sorry if we have mistakes in our English because we're still learning as well. So that's all from us. Thank you for watching and listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.